Hello everyone, this is Ferdy and welcome to this tutorial on securing HTTP server using SSL. In this tutorial, you should be able to perform port forwarding, the HTTP and HTTP ports in Ubuntu server inside VirtualBox, and install dynamic DNS client software. Port forward HTTP and HTTPS within the home wireless router, and finally install the SSL serbot from Let's Encrypt in Ubuntu. Doing this task is not that as simple as we think because it requires many things to be done first. Firstly, you should have the Ubuntu server having the following installed. SSH for remote access. This is required by the certbot. It's required by Let's Encrypt. In their website, the instruction is that you should access your web server using SSH. And then you should have Apache web server installed already and the PHP installed, the scripting language. So we have a separate practical on how to do this. And then you have to make sure MySQL also is installed. You can also see the other practical on how to do this. And you should have able to install the VSFTPD file server. We also have a separate practical for this. And you should have a no IP domain account or any domain name provider that you have. It could be GoDaddy or any website that provides domain name. So in this example, I have no IP as the tests domain registrar or name server. So I've already registered one domain name here, which is a free domain name. This is the name of the website, and for now this is just a domain name, and it doesn't have any hosting or server hosting this domain name. So this is the registration is straightforward. You just have to go to the website noip.com and then do the registrations, and they will give you 3 host names or domain names. For now I only have one in my account, so later we'll go back into this. So these are requirements for you to perform this practical. And you should have your computer with a static IP address because we will be doing port forwarding later. It is suggested that your local machine should be having a static IP address so that the port forwarding will be stable. And then of course you should have access to your home Wi-Fi admin panel. So this is the test topology that we'll be following in this setup. So I have my Ubuntu guest OS installed in VirtualBox, which is having an IP address of 192.168.200.10. We have a separate practical session or tutorial on how to configure your Ubuntu inside VirtualBox and how to do internal networking inside your VirtualBox. And you should have your computer configured with an IP address. In my case, I have 192.168.100.34. For you to test that, you may open your command prompt in Windows, and you know the command for that. You just have to type ipconfig to test your IP address. So in this, I have 192.168.100.34 assigned into this PC, which is here listed in the PowerPoint presentation. And the IP address of my router is 192.168.100.1, which is shown in this presentation. And for as far as the dynamic public, as far as the public IP is concerned, we don't know yet the IP address, and it keeps on changing. That's why we call it dynamic, because home internet connections mostly were assigned public IP addresses by the ISP. So for you to know your public IP address, you may visit a website which is what is my IP. So you can visit this website and it will tell you your current IP address. So my network is assigned with 5.21.56.37 by my ISP. So you can see your public IP address. But the problem is that this IP address is dynamic, so it keeps on changing every time. That's why if you will see in the objective here, we need to install this dynamic DNS client software to forward the updates, the IP changes into our domain name register or to our name server. So moving on, in this practical, we will do the approach. So we will start first the configuration from the Ubuntu guest OS, going up to the Windows host and then to the wireless router, and then finally the configuration of the dynamic public IP address. Let's start first configuring the port forwarding in VirtualBox. So we need to port forward the HTTP port number to the VirtualBox, because what we did here is that the Apache web server is installed inside Ubuntu, not inside the Windows OS. So what we need to do now is we need to port forward the Apache web server installed in this VirtualBox to the internal network of our VirtualBox. And then what happens next is we will port forward any HTTP request to this from our wireless router. And then from our public IP address, we are going to access the Ubuntu guest host using port forwarding. So start VirtualBox and open the Ubuntu virtual machine. And it's now opened. So mostly what I'm doing here is whenever I access to Ubuntu, I usually access this one using the SSH. So I go with the command prompt here and I do SSH in this one. So I access the Ubuntu web server using, the Ubuntu server using the SSH here. So I have used here the IP address of the Ubuntu server as listed in the PowerPoint. Let me just have to minimize this command prompt so that you will see this screen here. So this is the IP address of the web server, the Ubuntu server. So I will access it using SSH using my account here. Okay, so I have this prepared already. So I just have to put the command prompt lower. Then later on we will have it. So go to the VirtualBox interface. So this is the VirtualBox interface, and we do the port forwarding here. As indicated in the PowerPoint, we need to port forward 80 for HTTP and 443 for HTTPS. Sorry for the spelling mistake here. This is HTTPS. So we have to port forward the HTTPS here using port 443 for HTTPS and port 80 for HTTP. So for us to do that, just open the VirtualBox interface, click this one, go to settings, and then go to the network tab here. If it's not loaded, go to this one, and then look at the adapter one, or look at the adapter having the NAT configuration here. So click the advanced and go to port forwarding, and then just press add in here. So we have now the port forwarding rules here. So for the host IP address, just ignore it, but we need to put the port number here we want to forward, and then the VirtualBox that will be receiving that request, which is 192.168.200.10 in this example. Of course, we have to use the same port, which is 80. we need to indicate the IP address of the guest IP here because we might be having different virtual boxes installed. Operating systems installed in your VirtualBox. Similarly, we need to add another port forward here for SSH. We have to write in here 443. And then same, we have to use the same machine IP address, which is the VirtualBox IP address. And then write 443 here. It would be better if we have to put the names of the rules. This is HTTP, and this is for HTTPS. Press OK for that. That's it. So port forwarding was done. So let's try to test first if the web server is running. So you can go with this one, type HTTP, and then try to type the IP address of the Ubuntu server here. Just give me a moment for this one. Just give me a moment. Okay, sorry for that. I made a mistake on the URL. So it says 192.168.20.10. So I can access now the web server, which is installed in Ubuntu in our host operating system. If you will notice, it says not secured. It is having a mark here as not secured, which we will do later on. We will change this into a secured one using SSL. So this is working fine. Let's now proceed to the next task, which is let's now port forward the requests. So what happens now? So somebody from the internet will access our public IP, our domain name. It will be translated into our public IP address. It will go through our router, and then it will be port forwarded to this machine. And then this machine, upon receiving the port forward request from the router, will port forward the request to the guest's operating system, which is Ubuntu. So now we're done with the configuration in VirtualBox. So we can now port forward the request into this. The next step is we need to port forward any requests to this machine, which will later forward it to this VirtualBox machine here. So basically, for you to test your connection, to know your router's IP address, mostly the gateway IP address is the panel, the wireless router panel address as well. So in my case, I am using 192.168.100.1 as the IP address or the default gateway of my wireless router. So we will try to access it by typing here HTTP and then 192.168.100.1. So it brought me to my wireless router panel or admin panel. So try to log in. I am using Huawei HG8245H5. So we will have slight differences on the interface based on depending on what kind of wireless router you are using, but basically the principle is just the same. So most wireless routers having Huawei as the brand uses root as the admin username and type your password here, and then wait for this to load. So this is now the admin panel for the wireless router, and then go to advanced and then look for a menu similar to port forwarding. So some wireless routers, they call it NAT, and some they call it port forwarding. Depending on the brand of router you're using, you may be having this one. So go to port forward rules, and then mostly you have to go with port mapping here. So we need to add the services we want to be accessed outside our network. So just press new here and it will ask, so what kind of application you want to, let's say for example, port forward. Okay, so depending on the brand of your wireless router, the interface will be providing you choices on how to do the port forwarding. So in this case, we will create a new one. So basically, you can press application to use the templates given here. Let's say, for example, we have the list here, right? So we have, let's say, for example, FTP server. You want to port forward to FTP server, or you want to have your, let's say, for example, your web server here. So click this one here. First, HTTP, this one here. So web server HTTP. So just type this one. Now, if you have some applications which are not existing here from the list of suggested applications, just go with user define and just try to write in here whatever you want. So here we have HTTP. So for port 80, this is for port 80, automatically this will port forward 80. And then we have here the internal host. So the internal host is actually referring to this. This is where we want to forward the requests in this case. So if your router is capable on listing down the names of your computers here, that would be better. So let me just have to see if the name of my PC is recognized here. The name of my PC is this. It says desktop 4VH29GR. So this is the name of my PC. So it is detected here. So just click this one, then it will give you the IP address. So if you don't want to type the IP address, this is better here. Just select the name of your PC here. And then it says, what port would you like to open? So 80 up to 80. And that's it. Just press apply. So you're now able to add port forwarding on port 80. So you can edit this if you want. Then just have to write in here HTTPS. Sorry, HTTP. Then apply the changes. And then next, we have to port forward the HTTPS. So just go to HTTPS here. Then just call it HTTPS so that you will be reminded of what kind of port forwarding you did here. So just click this one, and then just this by default it will add the port number. Especially if you don't memorize the port numbers, this is better to use the template. And press apply. That's it. So you have now 2. So the problem now is we did the port forwarding from here to here to here, but the problem now is we can't access it yet through the internet because we haven't configured the dynamic public IP address. So we need to inform our domain registrar, which is in my case is my no IP here. I need to inform what IP address do I have. If you will notice here, the last IP address updated for this is actually 37.41, which is by now I have 5.21. So it's not updated anymore. So for me to do this, to update my name server or my domain registrar, so I need to update the IP address here so that whenever we type for the kiroscanlas.ddns.net in the web, it has to point to the public IP address here, which is actually the public IP address of this router. And from there, the router will handle the request and forward it to this machine, and this machine will forward it into this virtual machine. So we need to configure now the update client. So basically, the ISP provides dynamic public IP addresses to home wireless routers, unless you buy, of course. Extra charges will be there if you want to buy a static IP address or addresses. So mostly, we need to use a dynamic DNS client to update our name server or our domain registrar. In this case, when I say domain registrar, I'm referring to no IP, or it could be GoDaddy, whatever company where you purchase your domain name. And once you downloaded this, this application once you downloaded it. So mostly you will see it also from your domain register. Mostly your domain register will provide you a dynamic update client. So this client is solely for no IP. I don't know with the other companies or domain registers like GoDaddy if they provide the same application to update them with your IP address every now and then. So just download this. If you are running Mac, I think there are some commands here for you to install it. If you're running Linux, you can download this one. In my case, I'm running Windows because I want to install the dynamic client, update clients here, the dynamic DNS clients here, so that it will inform the router, and then the router will inform this one. Sorry, the application will communicate via this wireless router and update the name server or the domain register. So just download it. Download this one. So once this is downloaded, just install. The installation is straightforward actually. Just press yes. Then it will ask you to agree with the agreements here, then install, and then launch it. So it says run DUC or dock as a system service in the background. So it will launch it whenever you start your PC, which is very good. And then we have to log in here. You have to use your login account here. The account you used to create here, you have to type it also here. I think I have used for the last@gmail.com if I'm not mistaken. And type the password here. Okay, so this piece of software here will communicate with the with your name register here, this one here. So if you will see, it will list down all the domain names that you have in your account. Just press this one and press save. So it will now update. If you will notice, it's now updating. It says 5.21.56.37 or .37. If you will see, it is checking every 5 minutes. So updates are being sent to your domain register every 5 minutes. If you will go back to your dashboard now here in no IP, you will see that your IP address will be updated here later on. So just wait for quite some time to update this one. So the job of this is to update your domain register with your public IP address. So what happens now is that whenever you type your domain name here, what happens next is that it will contact your domain register or the name servers and retrieve or convert that particular domain name into a public IP address. And then it will reach now your router here, your wireless router, and then the process will go as I've discussed earlier. So let us see if it's updated. Sometimes it will take some time, or it will take some time to do the updates here. So let's try to access the domain, if we can access it now. Let's try to access it. If I could have it in there, I just have to go to my panel here, and then just copy this one. So sometimes you need to wait. You need to wait for quite some time to do the updates here. This one will activate once we once this is synchronized with the client here. So we have the client here, it has to activate. So it can't be reached as of the moment because we haven't updated the IP address was not updated yet. It says the last login was on May 2. So once this is updated, it has to show now your website here, which is similar to this one. It has to show this. Okay, let us see now if the domain name can now resolve to our public IP address. So just type in here ping, then the name of the domain name here that we register. So it's now being resolved into our public IP address. And just try to go back into your no IP and check if the IP address was changed. So you will see now it was updated to 5.21.56.37. It's now matching with our client here. And then try to visit this if you can access it via the internet. Just paste it in there like that. So you see, using the domain name here, I can now access my web server from Ubuntu here. So if in case that you're having trouble, you cannot access this, you have to verify your configuration, double check your configuration that everything is done properly here. So this is forwarded here, and this is also forwarded properly here. Just make sure everything is set properly. Sometimes your firewall is messing up. Let's say, for example, if you have like this antivirus here, like McAfee, it might, what call this one, affect your firewall. I mean, your connectivity. Just try to make firewall ruling here so that your host's operating system will accept connection. So just try to change the settings here. For the meantime, I turned off the firewall, but you can actually create rules into your firewall to accept connectivity from the outside world. So sometimes this will affect, or your antivirus will affect the access from the outside. So this is done now. We were able to access the website externally. So these are requirements, because if you cannot access this externally, or you cannot show this externally, you cannot access your web server externally, you cannot move to the next step, because the next step requires you to make sure that your web server is accessible online using the one I've shown earlier. If the page cannot be accessed into using the URL, then there is no way for us to install the certbot. So moving on, just continue with the configuration. Let me open my command prompt. So I think I have disconnected. So just go with the SSH again, the IP address of the VirtualBox. Okay, so from here we are going to install the certbot. So we'll be using certbot here. Let's Encrypt is suggesting that you should be able to access your web server using SSH. So this is their suggestion. So if you want to know more about certbot, I mean about let's cert it, or let's get cert, sorry, you have to visit their website and you will know more information about them. So we are very lucky that we have this website providing us this actually a certificate authority. You know what is this one? It's based on our discussion. So they are the ones providing the certificates here, the SSL certificates. So this is free. We're very lucky that we have this organization that provides free SSL. So if you want to know more about this organization, just visit their website. And actually all the steps I have given here for the installation of the certbot, or the configuration of the certbot, is coming from this website only. So moving on, let's move to the next step. We just have to go back with the slide here, which is this one. So configuring the SSL cert bot. So we're going to do the configuration now. The step is we need to install snapd. If you are using old versions of Ubuntu, you need to install it manually. But, however, a modern Ubuntu has snapd installed by default, starting from 18.0.4. So if you want to know the version of your VirtualBox, Ubuntu in VirtualBox, just log into your VirtualBox and click summary here. Just click summary here to see if you, the version of your VirtualBox. Your Ubuntu in VirtualBox. Just go to settings and then go to about. So as of the moment, I am using the latest version, which is Ubuntu 22.04. So let me just have to move to the next step. I'll just minimize this and go back to Windows command prompts because I use SSH to connect to my Ubuntu server. So just go with this. So let's try to verify first if our snapd is up to date. Just type sudo snap as required here in the PowerPoint. Install core, semicolon. So you can run two commands at the same time, which is this one, sudo snap refresh core. So this is now getting the latest version. Okay, so it says Snap Core has no updates available. And then let's now proceed to the next step, which is the installation of the certbot. So the certbot is the one responsible for communicating with the certificate provider, which is Let's Encrypt. So just enter this command in here, sudo snap install -- classic certbot. Okay, then let's now proceed to the next step here. Let's prepare the certbot command here. So just type sudo ln -s / snap / bin / certbot / space / usr / bin / certbot. So that's it. Let's now proceed to the next step. The next step is we now configure and link our web server with the certbot. So go back with the same command prompt here. So just type this command here, sudo certbot -- space -- apache. So it says enter email address used for urgent renewal and security notices. So you have to write your email here so that you'll be notified if you need to renew your certificate. So I will be using my personal email here. Okay. And then it will ask you to read the terms and conditions. If you have time, just read this one. So for now, we will agree with the terms. And then would you be willing once you first certify this stuff, blah blah blah. So just press yes here. And then please enter the domain name you would like your certificate for this. So we have to add it in here, the domain that we registered from the API, which is this one. This one here. Copy this and try to paste it in here. This one. Now it's now requesting a certificate for our domain name. It will take a little bit of time. It is now deploying the certificate. Then it's done. We can now proceed to the next step, which is sudo certbot renew dry run. Let us try to test the automatic renewal function, because you need to renew it once in a while. You will be prompted to renew it once in a while. So just try to go with sudo certbot renew -- dry run. Okay, the renewal is good. Let's now try to check if we could access the HTTPS. So let's see what happens now. So go back to this one. So try to type in here HTTPS. That's it. So our server now is secured. So we're now running HTTPS here. And that's the end of the tutorial. Thank you so much for listening. Have a nice day. Goodbye.